Welcome to the deep dive. We take the sources you provide and really get into the core ideas.
Exactly. We know you, the learner, want that deep understanding, but without getting bogged down.
And the sources this time are really interesting, focusing on non-drug ways to help with brain diseases.
Yeah, and today we're zeroing in on one quite specific, quite innovative area from that research you sent over.
Right. This deep dive is focused on a research project looking at something maybe unexpected. Can specially designed computer games actually help people living with Huntington's disease?
It's a fascinating question.
So our mission here is to understand the why behind this, how they're actually doing the research, and, what it could potentially mean down the line.
Let's get into it.
Okay, first things first. Huntington's disease. What are we actually talking about here?
So Huntington's is a progressive brain condition. Unfortunately, that means it tends to affect movement and also thinking abilities, and these effects generally worsen over time.
And the research highlighted something pretty unique about its cause. It's down to a single faulty gene. That feels different.
It really is a key difference. With lots of other conditions, you're often looking at multiple genes, maybe environmental factors, things that just increase or decrease your risk.
Okay.
But with Huntington's, it's this direct genetic link. And, well, it's important to say up front that while research is always moving forward, right now, we don't have treatments that fix that underlying gene problem or stop the disease progressing.
Which brings us to this idea of using computer games. It seems like a bit of a leap maybe for a condition without a cure.
It might sound that way initially, yeah. But the thinking behind it is really rooted in that old idea. Practice makes perfect. Or maybe more accurately, use it or lose it, applied to thinking skills.
Use it or lose it. How does that work here?
Well, the theory is that by consistently engaging certain mental skills, you might be able to maintain them better, perhaps even see some small improvements, even if there's an underlying condition.
So, by actively using specific thinking skills in these games, the hope is that those skills get stronger, or at least don't decline as fast.
Precisely. It taps into the brain's ability to adapt and change, what scientists call brain plasticity.
Yeah.
Think of it like exercising a muscle to keep it strong.
Okay, that makes sense. Especially, I guess, for people who know their cognitive abilities might decline, it gives them something active to do.
Exactly. And this isn't coming completely out of the blue. There's related research, right?
Yeah, the source material mentions some previous studies.
That's right. People have looked into brain training, often using computer tasks for healthy older adults, and also for people with other conditions like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease.
And what did those studies generally find? Any success?
Generally, yes.
Yeah.
They often showed measurable improvements in the specific thinking skills that were being trained.
Okay.
But, and this is a key point, there's still debate about whether those improvements really carry over into big changes in, say, movement problems or just overall quality of life for those conditions. It's complex.
Right. The real-world impact is harder to pin down. So that brings us back to Huntington's. It sounds like this is pretty new territory for HG specifically.
Very new. The research points out there's actually very little work done on computer game training for Huntington's so far. That's why this project they're discussing is what's called a feasibility study.
A feasibility study. So that's not about proving it works just yet.
Not primarily, no. The main goal is to figure out if a bigger study is even practical. Can they get people with Huntington's to actually participate? Do they stick with it? Are the research methods themselves workable for this group?
Okay. Like testing the waters before diving in.
Exactly. Because full-scale studies need a lot of participants, a lot of funding. You need to know it's doable first.
Makes sense. So how are they setting up this feasibility study? What does it actually involve?
It has a few aims. First, like we said, just checking if people with Huntington's find this kind of computer game training acceptable. Is it something they're willing to do?
And that might be a challenge.
It could be. The research notes that apathy, sort of a lack of motivation, can unfortunately be a symptom of Huntington's for some people. So getting consistent engagement is something they need to assess.
Okay. So how do they measure that?
They're using a standard approach, comparing two groups. There's a control group, they just carry on as usual. And then there's the intervention group, the ones who actually play the brain training games.
Right, so you can see if there's a difference.
Exactly. And for the group playing the games, what's involved?
They're asked to play for 3 sessions each week.
Okay.
Each session is about 30 minutes long.
Right.
And they do this for 12 weeks.
12 weeks, okay. And afterward?
Afterwards, the researchers gather feedback. What did participants like? What didn't they like? What were the challenges? That feedback is super important for planning any bigger studies later.
Crucial stuff. Now, the games themselves, I'm guessing it's not just about playing anything on a computer?
Definitely not. The research is really clear on this. Lots of games are marketed as brain training, but many are just entertainment. They don't necessarily target the right skills.
So these researchers picked specific ones.
Yes, they carefully selected games designed specifically to train particular thinking skills.
And what kind of skills are we talking about? The focus is mainly on what's called executive function.
Executive function. Okay, what does that cover?
Think of it as the brain's management system. It includes higher level skills like planning, problem solving, focusing your attention, juggling multiple tasks, that kind of thing.
Picture, like the brain's CEO.
Kind of, yeah. The research mentions examples like number puzzles, word games, and tasks specifically designed to measure and train attention.
Okay, so even though this study is focused tightly on Huntington's disease, it sounds like the findings could tell us more about brain training in general, too.
Absolutely. The researchers use a nice analogy, the card game Snap. You get better at Snap by playing Snap.
Right.
But the big question is always, does getting better at Snap help you with, say, remembering your shopping list or managing your appointments? That's the transfer question.
Does the skill transfer to real life?
Exactly. And this study, even being a feasibility one, could add pieces to that larger puzzle about how well skills learned in games transfer.
Now, it's really important we manage expectations here, isn't it? The research isn't suggesting this is a cure.
Absolute crucial point. This brain training, even if it proves helpful, is not going to change the faulty gene that causes Huntington's. It won't stop the disease itself.
So what is the potential benefit then?
The hope is more about improving day-to-day life. If these games can help maintain or slightly boost cognitive abilities, it might make daily tasks easier, improve independence for longer, basically enhance quality of life. It's about building cognitive resilience.
Okay, supporting function rather than fixing the root cause.
That's a good way to put it.
Now, if listeners want to learn more about Huntington's disease itself or find support, where should they look?
The research actually mentions two great places. The Huntington's Disease Association is one,
Okay.
and also HDBuzz. That's a fantastic website that provides easy-to-understand summaries of the latest Huntington's research. Really useful.
Great resources. Okay, so let's try and sum up this deep dive. The main takeaway seems to be this really interesting early stage look at using computer games, specific ones, as a potential tool for people with Huntington's.
Yeah, especially because there aren't treatments yet that change the disease's progression. So exploring ways to support brain function using the brain's own ability to adapt.
Yeah.
It's a really important avenue.
It's about leveraging that brain plasticity you mentioned.
Exactly. It's not a cure. We have to keep saying that. But it's focused squarely on improving life with the condition.
And it definitely leaves you with something to think about, doesn't it? This whole use it or lose its principle.
Hmm.
How does that apply to all of us, to our own thinking skills?
Hmm.
Maybe regardless of specific health conditions, there's value in it actively engaging our brains, challenging our thinking regularly. Something to ponder.